Hello there and welcome to this skill sprint. My name is Stephen Ball and you can reach me at Delphia Ball on Twitter. I'm going to be taking you through today having a look at InterBase Events and how we can get notification pushed to us from the database server of a change to data, and then how we can use change views to fetch specifically just the delta that has been changed. So if you've got a table that's got 1,000,000 records in there and you only want to know about the one or two that have changed, then change views allow you to pull exactly the same data back without having to modify your SQL statement. And using event alerts, we can get notice that change has happened on the server to save us having to poll constantly. Today's skill sprint works with Rad Studio XE8 and above, and also works with the app method April 2015 release. We are going to be using Windows here to do the example, however it automatically works across Mac, Android, iOS as well, and is available for both the Object Pascal and C++ platforms. Everything we're going to look at today is pretty much based around the components. So what we're going to cover today is what is a change view, what is an event within InterBase, and then we're going to have a look at an example. There's a sample that ships with the product, and we'll go through getting that set up and running and seeing it in action and pointing you in the right way to use that. So what is a change view? Change views were introduced in InterBase XE7, and they provide a new subscription-based model to subscribe to data and identify what data has changed in the database. So using the same query, you're able to subscribe to the database and say, this is me, and then when you are subscribed, you get a bookmark basically of the data that you've fetched, and then when you come back later on and say, hey, it's me again, what's new? You're able to find out specifically what has changed because it knows of your subscription. Now, subscriptions can run during a connection. You don't need to maintain connection, but you can. But they can also, and this is where they're very, very powerful, is have them running spanning time and connections. So spanning time basically allows you to briefcase data that you subscribe to, go away, do some work, come back in later on, reconnect to the database, reactivate your subscription, and then fetch only what's changed to the server data on the data that you fetched originally, which is immensely powerful for keeping briefcases up to date, especially if you've got millions of records in a table. Just being able to fetch exactly what's changed across multiple devices. And say subscriptions can run across multiple devices. Each subscriber basically has an ID that goes with their subscriber username and password, and that then provides different devices. So you could have a laptop, a mobile phone, a tablet, or you could just have one subscriber and every device has a unique ID that's used. So traditionally, we'd be looking at fetching some data and then some changes would happen, and you'd have to go fetch the data again to make sure that you've got everything up to date. And just even in this really, really simple example here, we're looking at 23 packets of data in essence having to be sent. And what change views does is it actually removes anything that you don't need to know about because you already know of that change. So here there's only one field changed, here there's a new field and one that's been updated, one update. So over time, if you collected here, you just get one packet. If you collected here, you just get 2 packets. And if you hadn't collected this, you'd actually get 3 packets. So it's able to really pinpoint specifically what's changed, dramatically reducing the amount of data that's sent. And that's really important when you start looking at things like InterBase Events, because we're able to use within InterBase a feature that's been around for a very long time called Events. And they allow you to basically get a push notice from the server, so you don't need to poll constantly for changes to the query. and you're able to get the server to tell you that something's happened. So really simple example here, we have a table called tab, and after an insert we're able to post an event called tab. And then if we're listening and we're interested in an event called tab, we're then able to go and do something about it. And obviously, using triggers, you could have a trigger here for after insert, after delete, after update, all defined. And they could be posted in the same or different events. But basically, once the event has been pushed, we could have, say, an insert statement that's inserting 10,000 records. So what's going to happen is those 10,000 records are going to be inserted, and then at the point the transaction is committed, then the post event fires in the background after the committal, because until it's committed the data isn't in the database, it's still in a limbo mode. So as soon as that posts, doesn't matter if it's one change or 10,000 changes, there's going to be a single notification that there's been change. So it's very lean in terms of what it's pushing out as the notice. Now there's great components that can pick up that notice of change, or it doesn't have to be a notice of change, it could be whatever you want it to be, but basically that post event can be picked up either using the IB event, the TIB event component from IBX, or FireDAC has a TFD event alerter component. And we're going to have a look at the FireDAC one today. There's plenty of examples about using the IB event one. It's been around for a long time, so I'm going to focus and have a look at the FireDAC one today. So let's get into having a look at that in code. So I'm going to go straight into opening a sample project. It's available under C++ or Object Pascal, and under the database section, FireDAC samples, there's under the DBMS specific, there's an InterBase, change view, and we're going to have a look at the generic one. And we had a look at the pharmacy example in a previous skill sprint, so let's have a look at the generic one here, which uses events as well as change views. And in here we can see that we have a button to open the database, we have the original data, and then we can see the change view data and then the merge data here. So here we've got this option to, well, we need to go read the README, which should tell us about setting this up. So I'm just going to right click on the form, show in Explorer just to quickly get to the folder. And the README basically tells me to go create the database. So I'm just going to go and copy all the code in here, or the metadata code, and just down here through IB console, I'm just going to, let's just go database, create database, and here I'm going to call this sub.ib. I'm just going to create it in a slightly different location to what's suggested because I have a data folder. Everything else we can just leave the same. And here, master key. Now I'm just going to hit the SQL window, paste everything in, and I just need to actually tell this it's going to be a write transaction and execute. And that's it, job done. So I should now have a database with a table with a couple of records in here. There we are, some records. There's some triggers. So here we are, we've got some triggers that are running as well. So that's all good, everything's in place. And these are posting the event tab. So great. So we now have our database sorted. Let's have a look at the components here. We've got this FD connection, which is our original connection to the database. And in here we have a query, which is going to be fetching back the data. Now I have been in and I have updated already the parameters on this database connection to point to where my database is. So we've got our query, which we're then going to be feeding into this TDB grid. We then have an additional query connecting back to the same database that is going to be running exactly the same query, which the connection is set at runtime, and that query is going to be managed here by this alert eventer. So we can see here there's this change alerter which is connected to the query. So every time this makes an alert, it's going to automatically refresh the query. Now the great thing about this change alerter is that we're able to set this to be a merge delta. So it's going to be merging just the delta. We're able to basically just tell it the subscription that it's running is called sub, and that was set up in the script earlier. So let's just jump back to that folder, and if we have a look down this, we can see here's the table, here's the ID generator, here's the posting of the events, and then here we've got a subscription called sub, which is on table tab for insert updates and deletes. So that's the subscription that we're connecting to, and that is all we need to do. That will then work with that subscription to fetch the changes to the queries that are connected to it, and then that will then update here with the merged data. So let's go ahead and see that running. So let's open the database connection, and we see here's our original connection, here's our second connection which has got the event alerter on it, and if our original connection goes and makes a change, we can see that we've got highlighted in bold here the delta merge, showing specifically that something has changed on the server. We had notification for it and it's updated what we're working with here. So let's go ahead and make some changes directly into the database. So I'm going to just move IB console across here a little bit. Maybe I've got caps on. There we are. And into our database table, we can see those changes here, so let's go ahead and change that back. Now I've not committed here yet, I'm in a state of limbo, so I'm just going to go ahead and change a couple of records here, and at the point I hit commit now, we can see the event alerter here is being notified from the InterBase database server of changes and has updated the data. So that's great. This is much better, cleaner data than the original database connection without an event and without the subscriptions running. The other things we can do is we can go ahead maybe and add a record. So let's put DDD in here, and we can change this back to BBB. And we can see now that this is showing that there's been some changes made to this record, but the changes aren't picking up any changes from the original data that we fetched, because they're not changed now. They've been changed back, but they have been modified. So you do want to have notification that there's been some activity on that record. But we can also see that we're able to highlight here, we're using purple, just picking up on the definitions of the data that's been an inserted record. So very, very flexible and capable of doing a whole load of things. In fact, if we go ahead and reopen the database connection here, I might just need to rerun that one. There we are. There's the basically the code hasn't got a close and reopen, which was leaving the handle open. It wasn't refreshing it. So just closing and reopening will sort that out. If I just go ahead now and delete this record, and let's commit and refresh, you can see we can also pick up deleted records. So that's very possible with a change view to pick up. And then here we can now see the merged data. The other thing that we can do, if we go ahead and Let's put in another record again. In fact, let's put in a couple of records. If we do the merge data, we can now actually see what the merge data looks like consolidated. And if we go ahead and delete one of these, just commit and refresh, we can see that's now removed, and we can now see what the consolidated data view looks like. So it's possible to actually see what's changed and also output only what is live if you so wish. So a whole host of flexibility in terms of your displaying of the data to the end user, notifying them that stuff has been changed elsewhere. That's really important if you had, say, stock prices that are updating and you had one user update the stock price, and the fact that you could show it to another user that it's been updated is important. But also if you just want to see what the current pricing is, then you could just use the consolidated view. If you want to see inserted and deleted, then yeah, all there. So that pretty much is it in a nutshell. I do want to, however, just finish off having a look at some of the code underneath here, because there isn't a huge amount. Originally we're just setting the database active. There's some stuff that's actually not relevant to the change views but here, but just setting the provider flags for allowing editing, loading the original parameters into the second database and connecting that, and then just setting the second query active and setting the event alerter active, and that's literally it. Under the merge data here, we're able to just merge the data set and taking the query changes and doing a delta merge, and that is literally it. So using the merge data set facility on FireDAC, we're able to very quickly and easily insert, update and delete the records that have had changes made to them. So very, very powerful. And there's also an option here showing how to use a memory stream option if you so wish to. I think best place to move from here, there's some great information on the InterBase Start Here page. Just open up IB Console and you will find it there now. Or you can visit this public link, which is Start Here InterBase index.html. Really is designed for use from IB Console, but you can go ahead and directly view it online. Also, having a look, if you want to have a look at using IB Events, the IBX components, then have a look in the doc wiki at Programming with Database Events, and that's under InterBase doc wiki. Or also, obviously, the embedded SQL guide. Also, you can get to that through DocWiki now, but there's a section in there called Working with Events, and that will take you through what you need to do. Or if you're just like me, just go and have a look at that sample. It's just in the samples directory, just directly from the IDE. Open up the samples, databases, FireDAC, database specific, InterBase, change views, and you'll be able to find the generic example there that we just had a look at. So the next skill sprint is going to be on next Tuesday, on the 4th of August, and it's going to be Test Insight Integrated RAD Studio IDE Unit Testing Made Simple. So that sounds like a great session. Unit testing is one of those things that most of us know that we should do, and not all of us do, but it certainly has helped me on the projects that I have done it immensely and been more than worth the initial upfront time. Over time, it's saved me so much more than the initial investment in time. We have some amazing offers running on RAD Studio at the moment, especially with Windows 10 around now. Go ahead and get into that. You can download the trial at the trial downloads link. Great premium style. Marco Canto's handbook, which is fantastic, especially for Object Pascal. The reference guide is just is brilliant, and then also there's the MIDA converter if you're doing conversion of VCL to FireMonkey applications. So that's it. Time for some Q&A.
Okay, so there's a few questions coming here. This is really cool, by the way. I just want to say I love this feature. It's one of those features that I've tried to implement in other databases with all sorts of extra columns and stuff like that. I never quite get it right, and it's so useful and so important, and it's so much of a pain trying to do it manually. So it's great to see it built into InterBase and have it just work.
Yeah, no, it's a super cool technology. I had a booking system that also, if you're booking out, it was using leisure clubs. If you're booking out squash courts, for example, and somebody comes in and makes a booking, we were constantly having to check to see if that squash court was still available, so we could update screens. And it used to absolutely cane the servers, even with kind of 3 or 4 machines. And we switched over to using events, and it was just kind of network load just disintegrated, it disappeared. And it was so much faster than polling as well. It was brilliant.
So here's a question. It says, do other databases offer events like MySQL?
I think there are some databases that do offer events. I'm not sure which ones are supported under FireDAC. I was just going to see if I could quickly find out. But yeah, I think I have a funny feeling that Oracle and MS SQL. I'm not sure about MySQL, but I'll have a quick look on the doc wiki, see if I can find the answer to that as we're in the Q&A.
But what you were showing was both events and change views, and change views is unique to InterBase, correct?
Yeah, change views is a unique technology for InterBase. It's patent pending technology, and I've actually got a white paper that's going to be coming out very, very soon, specifically about change views. So do keep an eye out for that. But it's change views just kind of scales in a way that traditional logging can't even get close to. So much so that I said the story, we had a proof of concept that we had to do with a pharmacy chain who had 30,000 remote sites that they had to keep updated with a central drug database. And their current pain is once a week they're having to ship out a whole new database. And just through the proof of concept, we had shown with change views how they could really scale up and have a whole load of connections in, and then just pick up the deltas for updating the drug information really, really quickly and easily. It just kind of it saved them literally thousands of pounds a month just in data movement and the support time that it took to kind of get that data updated.
Excellent. Now, what editions of InterBase are change views available in? Specifically, is it available in some of the mobile editions that we offer?
Okay, so we have basically there's 2 types of InterBase. There's the installed embeddable version, and then there's the deeply embedded version. The deeply embedded version is the InterBase to go and IB Lite. The installed is the server and the desktop and the developer edition. So change views is available in to go, desktop, and server. So it's not part of the free IB Lite database. But yes, you can get it on mobile because InterBase to go runs out on mobile, so you can use that out there. And I think there was a question about if we could use events back out to an InterBase server, from an InterBase server out to a mobile device. Absolutely. Probably from a practicality point, if you've got a warehouse application or something and you're walking around within a local network, then great. You don't really want to have your database ports opened up to the outside world. But if you've got a VPN or you're connected onto that network, then yeah, absolutely, there's no reason why you couldn't do that. Because it's in essence running an InterBase client out on the mobile device using the to go or even IB Lite deployment.
So I'm trying to make sure I understand that. So the InterBase events from the server can be pushed to the InterBase on the mobile device, the change events them directly. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so I honestly haven't tried it right now, but yes, I'm pretty sure it does. That's one of the nice things about having the fully embedded version of InterBase is that you can make those direct database connections. So if I wanted to connect to the database, run a query, disconnect, rather than having all the data passed in and out of JSON, which slows it down, then absolutely, yeah, you can do that directly from an IB Lite. In fact, I did that in the last code rage. Um, so if you go to my delphiable.co.uk blog, you'll be able to find the code rage sessions there showing exactly how to connect up from an IB Lite mobile application across to a server.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I remember hearing about this coming. I was like, "Oh, that's exciting!" Ever since I've been with Embarcadero here, just 2 years now this month, it's just been an incredible ride of cool technology coming out and being made available to our users. So that's just exciting to be part of. All right. Well, thank you, Stephen, so much for your time on this and for all that you do behind InterBase.
That's okay. I've just actually found there's a page on DocWiki that covers database alerts with FIDAC. So there's quite a few databases that do support it: DB2, Informax InterBase, SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, SQLite. I don't see MySQL listed though.
Thank you for your time again, Stephen, and thanks for everyone showing up for the skill sprint today.
Okay, cheers everybody. Happy coding.
Okay, so there's a few questions that came in here. I'll just start out by saying I'm a big fan of this feature in InterBase. It's really cool to be able to do this because this is a feature I've always needed in databases, ended up producing manually, and it never quite worked right. So it's good to have it baked in and working correctly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I've been through a lot of kind of different change tracking technologies in my past, and everything from logging all the way through. And when we sat down as an InterBase team, kind of almost 2 years ago, looking at what to do, we wanted to get something that was sat inside the database engine that developers could easily access, and that as a developer, it's very, very easy for me to implement without having to create additional users. That's not going to get complicated with bidirectional tracking, and does the hard work for me. And that's what we kind of got with change views, which is kind of been awesome. And also we wanted something that scales, and that's the kind of key thing really around change views, is that logging data changes out can really bloat database. The speed degradation can be pretty bad, especially if you've got lots of different places that you're tracking out to. With change views, it's near zero footprint on the database, no speed impact on the database whatsoever. And when you're, especially kind of the IoT world that a lot of things are moving towards now, being able to track changes out for multiple different destinations and being able to briefcase unique snapshots for different users. Doesn't matter if they're connecting from their laptop or from their iPhone or wherever. Is immensely powerful, because the amount of work that just goes straight out the window immediately is gone. But that working alongside traditional InterBase technologies like events that have been around for a long time. I remember working with these when I had a copy of Delphi 5 open, so they've been around for ages. But events are absolutely awesome, being able to just get the database to tell you what's changed.
Let's see, can we do something similar with a Sybase database? And it's actually asking about Firebird databases as well.
Okay, so there's a number of databases that support events, so you can actually get notification that changes happen on the server. InterBase is the only database that will tell you what has changed on the server if you're using a subscription through change view.
So you can get a notification of an event, but not what changed on other databases then.
Yeah. So what you might get is a notification that going back to the example I just gave, that the bookings table has had a change, but it's not going to tell you what has changed. So if you've got 70, 80 bookings for the day that you're looking at, you've got to go refetch the 70, 80 records, you've got to parse them to work out if it's the same as what you've got loaded or if anything's different, and then update the screen. With the change view, just say, here's the data, there's a new record being inserted at this time, I'm going to go put it on the screen. So much simpler.
Yeah, the change views are really the icing on the cake for events. I mean, events are cool, but change views and events, that's where it's really great.
Yeah.
So there's questions if we're planning to add this to other databases, available to other databases.
So InterBase is change views as a technology is patent pending. It's unique to InterBase. So as such, it's not something that you can easily go and add into other databases. So yeah, we're making it as easy and accessible as we can with the excellent integration there is within FireDAC. The event notifications, then yeah, as the link that I posted out in the chat earlier, there's a number of databases supported. DB2, Sybase, Advantage, Firebird, Infomix, InterBase obviously, SQL Server, Oracle, Postgres, and SQLite.
Okay, so just to recap, the events are supported across other databases by FireDAC, but change views are a feature specific to the internal implementation of InterBase, and so it's not something that we could add to other databases. It would have to be, yeah. So it's a unique to InterBase, exactly. Yeah, sorry about the echo.
So maybe one thing I'll just say, Jim, on one of the questions that we had earlier was about using this on mobile.
Right, using change views on mobile.
Yeah, and alerts. So I'm just going to see. So one of the things that you can do is obviously InterBase to go is available for use on mobile. That supports change views, and also using iBelite or InterBase to go, you can do a direct connection to an InterBase database. So you can do that directly from a mobile device if it's on the local network. So that it's absolutely possible to actually have live push notification of data. If you, for example, if you have an application that works within the firewall out on mobile devices, then absolutely you could use these technologies to get out onto mobile, which is pretty cool. Being able to kind of walk around and have live notifications displaying on a tablet or on a mobile phone about the data that's happening around the network. Because InterBase is a client application and works as a database, a full-fledged database out onto a mobile device. You can use change views in both bidirectional data out on a mobile device as well, which is pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. The InterBase, those features like that, these great features can then work on IB2Go on the mobile device. So if I mute myself on GoToWebinar, then it gets rid of the echo apparently. So if you want to address Brian's question about managing database events that could add records to change table that you did just a minute ago, I'll mute myself again so everybody can understand you.
Okay. Yeah. So one of the comments was what you could do is in a trigger you could then do a login to the table, which you could then do the event afterwards, and then you could just pass the log table to find out what's changed. Yeah, absolutely, you could do that. The only problem with doing that is that you then have to start managing bookmarks, and not everything happens within sequence, and because things are happening within different transaction snapshots, generators, if you're trying to order things out by generated numbers, generators are actually they all run outside of transactions to provide a unique number, because obviously you can't have two transactions running at the same time calling the same generator expecting to get, they need to get unique numbers back. So you can't use a sequential number to find out where somebody was up to. That's not always possible. So things will end up getting lost very, very quickly if you're going through those logging kind of mechanisms. You need to actually physically lock the tables and have single write access. It becomes a real pain in the development chain to actually do that kind of approach. Change views just completely get around that because everything's happening within a snapshot transaction. We're able to tell and isolate everything that you do to the stuff that's happening around you, knowing where you were when you started, what things are happening around you, so you can pick those up even if you've been in a long-running transaction. Other things are happening around the edges. So I get where you're coming from, Brian. Potentially possible if you've got if you've got one additional machine that you're pushing things out to, probably make it work. But realistically, on scale, you're then into the whole realms of logging, which I've got a white paper that's coming out very, very soon about change views specifically, and there's 10 reasons why change views is completely different to the traditional logging and different, those kind of techniques. So definitely keep an eye out for that on the website soon.
Okay, great. So hopefully that was better for everybody that can understand you that time with me muted. I'm not sure why the GoToWebinar software is creating feedback right now, but it is. But anyway, I think that's it for questions, unless someone's got something else. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up. And again, thank you for this. Oh, Brian has another comment here. I have done a great deal with synchronizing data. It will be interesting to see the white paper. Nice presentation. Thanks. Yeah, so looking forward to that white paper for sure.
Yeah, and just in terms of another example for you, we did a proof of concept with a pharmacy chain where they've got literally thousands of distributed points, and they actually had a Microsoft SQL Server database essentially, and their current architecture really kind of meant that they couldn't get that changed out. But what they've done is they've actually put an InterBase database up next to it, and the specific drug information tables. There's a little program that basically does compare and merge centrally, updating the InterBase database, and then all of the sites are able to connect into that InterBase database to pick up a specific delta of the data just for them. And that is kind of basically transformed the way they're able to do some work. But there'll be kind of more of that kind of story through the white paper, so definitely worth getting hold of from that. But the code for that sample, for that proof of concept, is actually available. It's in Rad Studio XE8 install. It's the pharmacy demo that's in the same directory that the demo that I looked at today in the skill sprint is there. And it was actually the subject matter for a previous skill sprint on change views itself a few months back.
Excellent. So everybody can download XE8, either get the trial or upgrade, and take a look at that demo there. All right. We'll be especially interested to see the white paper. We'll go over the issue of hundreds of remote points, adding records and synchronizing those changes into a central database. All right.
Cool.
Great. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I realize it's evening time for you, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up so that you can get on with your evening. And thanks again for a great session, and we'll look forward to seeing you online again in the future.
Okay, cheers, everyone.
All right, bye. Well, if anybody else has any other questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A area here. Do the change views work on mobile as well as the desktop versions of InterBase?
They do. And this example that Stephen wrote, it can work on iOS, iOS 64, and Android.
Okay, great.
And Mac desktop also.
Can the events, the change events that are generated on the server, can they be passed directly to the client application?
Yeah, I think actually in this example, the event alerter is just a client, and it is talking to the connection, but it's the server that's pushing it to each client. So I think that is the goal. Just going into the other question too, that you could have somebody on an iPad, somebody on a phone, and when the server pops it, as long as everyone is subscribed, they'll all get that real-time information.
Okay. What's the memory consumption like when there are too many records returned from the?
I don't know. I mean, I don't have a specific answer to that, but I would say it's less than if you're not using change views, because then these queries would do a full table scan of the full query, and the change view is now only computing the delta from the last time you selected from that subscription. So how much memory, I don't know, but less memory than without subscriptions.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what you mean by too many records, but yeah, it's going to be less because, like you said, it's only the delta. How does the database cope with almost simultaneous changes from different clients? Does one get told their update failed?
I mean, if there's a conflict, or if they just happen one before the other? The second one would fail if it was in conflict with the update that happened before it, but since they InterBase has the multi-generational architect. You know, everyone will see a different view. But yeah, if you try to update something that's already been updated, then the second one will fail. I don't know. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yep, he said that's exactly what it was if there's a conflict.
Okay.
So they'd get notified there's a conflict and they get an option if the
Yeah, and
client.
they probably just, they'll see the new, get a conflict, and when they connect, they'll see that whatever has just been updated, a new view.
Okay. Great. All right. I think that's it for the questions. So thank you, Gabe, for your time and answering questions for us today.
No problem. Thank you, Jim.
And Robert says thanks for the sprint and thanks for your time tonight. So, yep. Great. Thank you, Rob, for joining us, and for everybody else for joining us. It's great to have everybody join us online for these developer skill sprints. Hope to see you all next week for Test Insight. Thanks a lot.